Anyway, I want to tell you about a little project that we're doing here at Monkton, which you're all going to be part of, and it's particularly a Year 9 project, so it's really important. Something that lots of people in education more broadly are talking about, and we're going to do a little project on it. It's called Aptitudes, you can see up there on the screen. Now, there's sort of two types of things that I guess you learn in lessons. The first sort of stuff is very specifically about that subject or activity you're doing. So, for instance, you learn algebra in maths. You learn about the reasons for World War I in history. You learn how to take a short corner in hockey. You learn how to what the symbols on a musical score mean. And then you get tested on that, and you find out how well you're doing on that, how much you remember about those very specific things, about those particular subjects or those particular activities. And those assessments are designed to sort of tell how well you're doing, how well you've learned them, and how you can do better in them next time. That's pretty standard stuff. That's not news to you. But there's a second group of stuff that you learn across all the things you do at school, and we're calling those aptitudes, or you might call them skills, something like that. Here's 4 of those skills that you might be developing. Things like collaboration or creative thinking or problem solving or communication. And you develop those across all the things you do in school life. So you do them in physics, you do them in RS, you do them in rugby, hockey, drama, music, all those sorts of things. All those are in those across all school life. Now, what I want you to do, just for 30 seconds, I want you to turn to your neighbour and choose one of those and think in the last week how you think you might have developed that. Okay, 30 seconds, just with your neighbour. Okay, great. Hope you came up with something. But, interestingly, we don't talk about these very much. They're really important, but we don't talk about them very much. So I wonder if you sat there going, oh, I don't know. No one's really talked to me about that. So I don't really know whether I developed any problem-solving skills in the last week. And that's one of the problems that we're going to try and sort out by this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and make them a bit more obvious, talk about them a bit more, and generally assess them. Find out how well we're doing them. How well are you developing your communication skills? How well are you collaborating with other people? Because if you don't know the answers to those questions, you won't know how to get better at them. Now, just to be clear, it's not that you're not developing those at the moment. You probably came up with a few ideas just now as you were talking to each other. It's not that we're not doing those at the moment. We're just not talking about them very much at the moment. And so we're going to do a bit more talking about them and making them a bit clearer and assessing them so we know how well we're doing in them. What we're going to do is we're going to group these into 2 different, what we might call aptitude clusters. So one called collaboration and communication, because those sort of go together quite well. And another one called creative thinking and problem solving, because they go quite well together. And what we'd like you to do is to choose one of those that you're going to focus on particularly, one that you're going to gather some evidence for yourself to work out how well you're doing in that one or the other one. Now, if you choose one, it doesn't mean you're not going to do the other one. Everyone's going to do both of them because everybody does it all the time. But we want you to focus on particularly one of them so that you can gather some evidence for it. And what will happen over the next couple of terms is your teachers, whether in a lesson or in sport or in drama or music or whatever you're doing, will say something like, okay, today, whatever we're doing today, it'll be really good if you're on the collaboration and communication assessment aptitude, then you'll be able to collect some evidence today for whatever we're doing today. So, for instance, in history, you might be looking at the causes of World War I, but you might get into little groups to debate it. And your history teacher might say, well, actually, this would be a great opportunity to think about collaboration and communication. So maybe video this little debate you're having, and then decide a little bit later how well you think you've collaborated. Were you making people talk to each other and get on and get to a result, or were you just sort of sitting back and waiting for others to do it? So that's one example, perhaps. Or perhaps in rugby or hockey, maybe your coach has asked you or a little group of you to design a drill to develop some skills. And maybe you've chosen creative thinking. And again, maybe you get to film that or somebody else films it. And you can think, well, how well did I design that drill? What sort of creative thinking did I go into to make that a really good drill? Or maybe not such a good drill. So there's 2 examples. But there'll be loads of opportunities over the next 2 terms to gather evidence. Now, and I hope it'll be a really interesting and exciting opportunity to sort of think about these things a bit more, particularly because some of us aren't so good at the subject knowledge. Perhaps we find it difficult to remember stuff, or we don't really understand this bit of subject knowledge. But we actually might be quite good collaborators. So you might be the best person in the room. You may not be great at your algebra, but you might be the best person in the room to help other people work stuff out because you're great at collaborating with others. And that's a really important skill to develop.